presenter. So sometimes it will ask you to agree to that. And I'm going to do a very, very short introduction, and Gabriella will continue to let people in on the waiting room. You will realize, of course, this morning that we have people from all corners of Europe, but also from beyond that as well. So here's our little introduction this morning, and it's very brief, but it's really important because I am aware of the fact that some people may not really know a lot about InSEA. So good morning or afternoon or evening, and welcome to everybody, because this is a week where the world is actually looking closely at Europe, and where Europe is also looking closely at itself. So we need to give you a little bit of context for InSEA. InSEA is the International Society for Education Through Art. It became an organization under the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, which was actually founded in the aftermath of the 1939-1945 World War II. And there's a story there because UNESCO was conceived after the war in a spirit of hope, in a confidence that a new style or kind of international relationships across the world could be developed. And the world, if you think about it, had just come through a terrible, protracted war, one which had been initiated by ideology and philosophies that worked on ignorance through the control of free speech. So the impulse in 1945 was to try to ensure it did not happen again, and that people should understand each other better through education and through all forms of cultural and scientific exchanges. So there was a passionate emphasis on truth, justice, peace, and the importance of the individual, and those impulses were irresistible. And much of InSEA's philosophy was formed around the work of Sir Herbert Reed. And if you've never read this book, which was written a long time ago, I highly recommend it. I'm just going to give you a quote today from Herbert Reed. Since the purpose of education is to liberate the force of spontaneous growth.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Alice.
Could somebody mute their microphone, please? Thank you. And since growth is only made apparent in expression, then education is a matter of teaching children and adults how to express themselves in sounds, images, tools, and utensils. In other words, the aim of education is therefore the creation of artists, of people efficient in the various modes of expression and communication. So it's now my privilege to introduce you to Gabriella Pataky and Mira Kallio Tavin, who are my fellow World Councillors representing Europe. We have been doing this together since 2019. And after they've said hello, we're going to hand over to Mira, who will introduce our first speaker today. Each speaker has 15 minutes. We hope very much that they remember that. And you're invited to ask your questions in the chat, because what we'll do at the end is we will get together questions and direct those to the speakers. InSEA was born for a purpose, and it continues to grow. We have members in 73 different countries. And part of our work during the pandemic and before was to create opportunities via this format of a webinar to bring people together with a focus on a chosen theme. And this today was inspired by our colleagues in Asia, who had a similar event with young artists and young artist educators. And we want today to bring together the voices of young people who are the future, because as it says on that slide, tomorrow belongs to them. So I'm now going to hand over to Gabriella to say hello, and hopefully to Mira, who will be introducing Rasmus.
Yes, hello everyone. This is a beautiful morning here in Hungary, Budapest. I can't wait to hear all our speakers today, and I will just hand it the word to Mira. She's here, even though it is very, very early for her. Thank you, Mira.
Is Mira here though?
Yes, thank you, Susan.
Hello, Mira. Hello. Sorry.
Hello.
See you.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, Gabriella. Good morning, Rasmus. So nice to see you. And good morning, everybody else. Yes, I am located in the East Coast of United States at the moment. So it is 5 o'clock in the morning. So this is an early bird session for me. Really, really, really nice to see so many familiar faces. And thank you, Susan, for such a important and beautiful words about InSEA and InSEA's role in art education, and we are so happy to have this amazing organization that we can work with, and as Susan said, we start with Rasmus's presentation. Rasmus is alumni student from Aalto University. He's a Finnish-German artist and art educator from Helsinki, based in Helsinki, Finland. He studied at Aalto University Schools of Art, Design and Architecture, and now is preparing for his next solo exhibition at Makers Gallery in Vaasa. And welcome, Rasmus, and the floor is yours and the mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll just start by sharing my slides. I hope you can see it. All good? Yeah, great. Nice to be here. Thanks for coming. And let's get right into it. Just really shortly about the structure here. 15 minutes is a short time. I'll be moving on pretty quickly. I'll just show first some images of my paintings, of my work, and then I'll talk a little bit about something that's been really important to me lately, co-organized events in differing spaces. We'll get to that for a moment, and then just a few closing thoughts on arts as a way for pursuing active forces. Lately, I've been working mostly with painting, especially oils, and I think some kind of pivotal point was 2020. I was writing my master's thesis in Aalto and just tried to paint as much as I could at the same time. And during that time, I found an interest in maybe human figure somehow colliding and living in urban spaces, especially maybe the fringes of the urban space and what that maybe means. I work quite a lot with taking photographs, both analog and Polaroid images, as well as with my phone, and then also just making drawings based off of those things. And in 2020, I was starting to figure out maybe a way of creating collage-like paintings with these human figures from the city space, and this was really something that I feel like it set me in motion in a lot of ways. The pandemic hit pretty much at the same time, so maybe there was something coincidencing as well. And then through working with this style of using some photos, some drawings, and trying to combine them, I started moving lately towards maybe even more the materials of the city space and its fringes, with some maybe additional thoughts on looking at wasteland or no man's land kind of spaces, and I found especially materials like stone and concrete kind of coming into my work more and more during 21 especially. Here's two fairly large paintings from 21, and especially the second one, We Move Beneath a Play of Words, it feels strange to look at it. It's one of the reference images I used for this painting, it's from Helsinki area as well, some old World War II. It's like a cave, I don't know, shelter or part of some kind of defensive line. And it feels pretty weird to look at it right now with all the things going on and the ghostly figure in there. So that's also been on my mind right now, of course. And through these materials, the kind of like the line works in the stone, I felt like it was bleeding more and more into my drawings as well. And I felt like just having a bunch of drawings in my sketchbook, I've had a feeling for quite some time that I wanted to somehow progress those things or elevate them, take them into the world of painting maybe. And then since the later part of 21 and now 2022, this is what I've been trying out more, and it's been really fun and exciting, a bit different, but in style maybe, but this kind of line work that's coming from my pencil drawings has felt like something exciting and new for this moment. But I still feel like the themes are somehow very closely related to those I just talked about. So we'll see where this will be going to. And yeah, this will also be the stuff at my next exhibition in Vaasa mostly. But so I'll stay in time. I'll make a little jump. Now you have a little bit of an idea what I do in the way of painting. But what's also felt super important, and I think this relates to art education in a way as well, has been what I hear called co-organized events in differing spaces, meaning perhaps places and spaces that are not exactly gallery space or gallery-like space. I've been organizing these kind of things for the maybe past 4 or so years with my colleagues Elina Ahlstedt and Susanna Sturbacka, and I think it's been one of the main forces also inspiring me to paint as well and do other kinds of tests when it comes to my own art. And they've been organic, semi-spontaneous, at least sometimes, things, very collective, underground-ish often, and event-like, so pretty short-lived exhibitions that have been a way to both create, of course, the event, but also artworks maybe for the events where we've had the opportunity to try out things that might be where one might be a bit unsure about if this is a good idea or not, but then because it's at least partly taken out from the structures of the art world or gallery world, then there's also, it's been quite noticeable that there's less pressure on one in the sense of feeling like one has to deliver or show that you are more than you are or somehow feeling like that. And then also they've just been things that where we've had the feeling that they really bring people together and create actual moments of happening and being with art and being with other people, and that's been especially important over the course of the pandemic. I'll have 2 little examples. One was a pretty small thing or short thing organized by me. This was kind of like a solo exhibition in a one-night exhibition in an abandoned power transformer tower outside or in the Helsinki suburbs. This was in autumn 2020. I had found this tower when I was just walking around there in the area in the summer, and then when the time was right in autumn, immediately when I had walked into it, I was like, I had thought this is a perfect place to have a little exhibition. So some friends helped me. We packed a car with my paintings and borrowed the ladder that you can see. And then the exhibition was set up on the 2nd floor. You had to climb up the ladder And because it was autumn in Finland, it gets pretty dark pretty quickly. So we had some candles, flashlights, and I had told people who were coming that they maybe should take a flashlight with them if they came later. And a lot of people also said that it was a lot of fun to kind of explore the paintings with the flashlight, because you couldn't just like glance over at everything and have it done with. So I enjoyed that, and of course the place played a huge part as well, just delivering to the whole whole thing. And then a slightly bigger project we did with, like I said, Elina and Susanna this summer in Verkkosaari, which is an area next to, or it's like part of Helsinki, close to the sea. For now, still this kind of no man's land or wasteland, where there's not really anything happening except when people go do something there. And I think they are old storage halls for boats. And we picked one, we cleaned it up. It was incredibly messy and a lot of glass on the floor. The second picture is after cleaning, and we invited 6 other artists, young artists, to participate in the exhibition with us, and we set it up during a day, and then in the evening we had the opening, and then it was open through the night and into the next evening. And we just hope that the police won't come harassing us or asking too many questions, but it went well. And you can see we did a little, in the small picture, we did a little magazine kind of thing with the artist bios, and people could buy it to support us with some of the material stuff that we had to get. We had no other funding for this, so very grassroots kind of thing. And yeah, it felt really like a great success. Everyone I talked to was so happy that they could be there. We were fortunate to have very good, very low COVID numbers in summer in Finland, so it felt like this partly outside kind of space was also safe enough to organize an exhibition. Here's just some images from there. In the night, it still got kind of dark. We had some candles, we had some flashlights. In the last picture, I'm making coffee in the night on a trangia. And yeah, we just stayed there the whole night, and then for the next day we had some shifts, so there was always somebody overseeing the exhibition, and in the evening we took it down. Here 2 more pictures, some ceramics by Petra Aaltola and paintings by Susanna Sturbacka. And yeah, maybe to close things out and also connected to art education, these kinds of projects, they have really felt like something meaningful and special, and they've given so much more energy to also try out things myself and keep painting and keep planning new things, and I think this is something that could maybe also be stressed out more in art education environments, especially when maybe working with slightly older students, that there is the possibility to sort of just do it yourself, that you don't always have to kind of wait for things to happen sometimes later in the future and just hope for somebody to kind of accept you or your applications, and it's also possible to do other things at the same time and enjoy that. And maybe if one wants to take it into slightly more like philosophy direction, then I think one can also think about it through seeking out and strengthening active forces as opposed to maintaining reactive forces. And those are concepts from Gilles Deleuze and his reading on Nietzsche, where he sees active forces as things capable of differentiating, changing, escaping, and making life being felt, and creating new things, and all kinds of displacement. And I feel like these short-lived art events have been just that, in a very nice and meaningful way. And I think this applies also to studying and teaching art, and also art criticism, both probably inside school and but also then when writing about art, that maybe there should be, maybe we should push it more towards different kinds of possibilities of creation and excitement, instead of passiveness or resentfulness or negative criticism, but maybe just try and make the criticism something that is like aiming to create something itself, and not just being kind of like a passive observation. I think I'm getting close to my 15 minutes, so this is going quite well. Here's one last image from 2021, yellow milk. To close things out, there's a link to my website. I can put it in the chat as well. I'm working on a new website now. This one is more like just an image portfolio kind of website, but there should be one coming up this spring sometime, hopefully. So when it's ready, I'll put a link on the old website as well, so you can find it there. And yeah, I just want to thank you all, and let's hop on to the next one.
Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen. Your timing was perfect, by the way. Okay, absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, Rasmus. That was fascinating. The idea of climbing up and down a ladder to go to an art gallery has got me quite worried, but I probably get stuck in the gallery. I just love the way you've just grabbed space.
Now you're on mute.
But that was lovely. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And I'm going to hand over now to my chosen speaker, who is Toby May Wyson, or Wisson. Toby is an illustrator who originally comes from Nottingham in England, but now is based in Manchester, which is in the northwest of England. Toby graduated from Manchester School of Art with a degree in illustration with animation in 2020. And Toby currently works at the arts education charity Access Art part-time. Access Art, may I underline the fact that they are a very good organisational member of InSEA as well. And Toby freelances as an illustrator. So while she's speaking, she sent me some links to various things that will appear on her slides. So I'll be putting those into the chat for you. Just a reminder to everybody that you can save chat, which means that you can keep the links instead of saving them throughout the talk. And we will come back to you later, Rasmus, with some questions from people. So Toby, it's now over to you.
Thank you, Susan. Right, let me just share my screen.
We're there.
Ah, perfect. Right, okay. So yeah, I've always loved to draw, so it makes sense that I landed on an illustration degree, but it wasn't until I was actually about 16 or 17 that I decided I wanted a career in art and design. So I took this opportunity when Susan asked me to do a presentation to kind of reflect on my whole creative journey. So sorry, you're getting my life story, basically. So this image is in the UK. Whenever you're about 5 or 6 in class, they give you a tea towel and you draw yourself, and they put you all on this tea towel. So this was me, and I was clearly feeling very strong that day. Okay, so a bit about my past. As a family, we traveled around a lot. So I was born in England, and then we moved to South Africa. Then we lived in Portugal, Northern Ireland, and then we settled back in England. So having parents from two different migrate backgrounds, I think it's definitely a huge part of my identity, and having that has kind of influenced my curiosity, I think, about the world and the people in it. So when I reflect on the beginning of my creative journey and how it led to becoming an illustrator, one thought that comes to mind is that for the first 4 years of my life, I lived in places where I didn't understand the language that other children were speaking around me. So when I tried to communicate with other people in Portugal, I remember I ended up telling one that my name was television because it was the only word I knew and I wasn't sure what they were asking me. So drawing was always a bit of a safer bet, I think. So my mum is also very creative, so I was always encouraged to draw, paint and play. And I remember spending hours tracing pictures and rummaging through the recycling to make inventions out of cereal boxes, and always asking my sisters to print off pictures for me to colour in. There we go. So this image, I think, sums up what I was like as a child. I was pretty quiet, but very self-assured. I enjoyed drawing, but didn't like writing long sentences. And these are all still qualities that I see in myself today. My main memories of primary school are art and DT lessons, playing games in the playground, and dreading all of my maths lessons. So as a teenager, I continued to love art, but hadn't considered it as a career. And I think that I almost didn't continue it into my GCSEs at 14 because I knew that, well, I didn't know that there were like many jobs in it. I did textiles because I knew that fashion designer was a job. And I actually think it's pretty common that teenagers aren't told about the different creative careers available to them, and it does impact choices early on. So for my final art exam at GCSE, my art teacher told me to paint someone inspiring. So I painted Beyonce, and I don't really know why. I'm almost certain in hindsight that I should have picked a family member because I'm very fortunate to have parents who have been really supportive of my decisions to pursue art. And when I realized it was what I wanted to do, they were really happy. And I know that that's a lot of people have to kind of fight their corner when they want to do art. So the paintings on the right are from my A-level art when I was 16, 17. And when I look back, I can see they're quite heavily influenced by the fabrics and patterns that I was surrounded by as a child. Okay, so then I went on to do an art foundation in Nottingham when I was 18, with no idea of what I wanted to do at university. I just knew I wanted to be creative. The course was really experimental and open-ended. It was like being a kid in the playground, which was really fun. So for 6 weeks, we were given projects that would last a day or two. This one was one of my favorite, where we had to make a piece of clothing out of toilet roll. I really loved the outcome, and it's still one of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest. But it was really stressful and time consuming. So I realized that fashion definitely was not for me. Let me just, okay. So these are a couple of other projects that I enjoyed doing. So on the left, there was a life-size drawing of a kitchen. And then I also made a lamp inspired by a pumpkin out of some plastic cups. So throughout the beginning of the foundation, I remember really resisting the idea of being an illustrator. I think at the time I thought that there were probably too many illustrators in the world, and it didn't feel like that special, which I was so wrong about. Anyway, but in the second stage of my art foundation, where we got to select the different briefs and projects that we worked on, I realized that over the course of 6 weeks, I actually kept on choosing the illustration ones. And I was really excited by the idea of being an animator, but I'm not naturally a computer software person, so the reality of being an animator wasn't really for me. So when I stumbled across a talk for illustration with animation at Manchester School of Art, I suddenly felt really excited, and I realized that I could draw with a pencil, which is what I love to do, and then animate it. So here are a selection of projects from my undergrad. So there's lots of creative exploring. We had access from everything to print rooms, to bookbinding, animation suites, all sorts. So the projects we were given ranged massively. We'd respond to things like words, films, artifacts, short stories, music, the list goes on. Okay, so an important moment in my creative journey happened in my second year when a tutor told me that if my artwork was a dog, he would have called the RSPCA on me in front of 15 people, which was, it was awful. Anyway, so the brief for the project was to create a film poster. And because I actually really liked the tutor before he said this, I was trying to create work that I thought that he would really like. So I just had the worst creative block, and nothing I was making was me. So after a couple of weeks, I started monoprinting and just doing something completely different to get over the creative block. And I loved what I ended up making. So the main lesson that I learned from this experience is that I have to make artwork that is authentically me. It's easy to think about how other people will pursue your work before you've even made it, but it's not healthy. It's the worst thing for creative block. So now if I'm struggling, I just try something new and it keeps it interesting. Okay, so here are a bit of my animations. Let's show you that. So I always felt very challenged by the animation part of my course. And I still do feel quite challenged by animation because I'm not very technical. And I like to feel in control, and I do whenever I'm drawing. So I threw everything at this particular project, from stop motion and projection mapping to digital animation, and it was lots of fun. And the freedom to be really experimental is also exciting. But this is definitely the kind of animation that I like to do, just little GIFs, you know, 3 or 4 images, perfect. Okay, so my final year of uni was a turning point for me creatively. I found it really challenging because it was so self-directed. And although I'd done a lot of experimenting, I felt like I couldn't really visualize who I was as an artist. So it probably wasn't until this final project that I started to feel like I had a bit of an identity as an illustrator, and I knew kind of I had a bit of a purpose. So after lots of false starts of projects that weren't going anywhere, I decided to celebrate the multicultural identity of Manchester. All I knew was that I wanted to have a project that had meaningful impact, and this meant I'd have to reach out to the community, which was actually quite scary. I didn't really want to, but I knew I had to. Okay, so at first, I tried to create a project about the community by being a quiet observer, which never works. Manchester has hundreds of migrant fruit and veg shops filled with colourful foreign packaging and food, so that's where I started. Whilst that did have a lot of value, I knew I had to start talking to people in the shops to ask questions and find narratives, which was pretty daunting. But through these conversations, I began to realise how important food is as an identity, and it occurred to me that certain foods and drinks can be used to recall memories and feelings. So I thought back to one time a few years ago when I was having a cup of rooibos tea, which is a tea that grows in South Africa, and I had this weird sense of deja vu. And it turns out that actually when I was living in South Africa as like a 1-2-year-old, my mum would give us rooibos tea. And I thought about that feeling when I was coming up with my project, and about how I thought food would be a good narrative for it. So I wanted overall my project to be supportive of those who were displaced and who could find comfort in their food and identity. So I came across the Share a Dish on Refugee Week's website and decided to create a recipe book from all the recipes and stories that they'd collected from refugees and asylum seekers. And I wanted to use that as inspiration to then create my own recipe book. My final year of uni was so important because I learned the value of just throwing myself into something, even if it was scary. I don't know how to say that these opportunities changed my life without sounding dramatic, but it's because of these encounters with people that I now have a wonderful job at Access Art. So I volunteered with a brilliant woman called Bucky Baldwin, who provides a safe space for refugees to come and create. Bucky taught them new skills and sold the products that they made in her shop, with all proceeds going to charities to support them. Bucky's business is a perfect example of why creativity is so important. All of the women in the group felt empowered and supported, and also safe. So my final project was a 36-page recipe book celebrating the recipes that the ladies in the group had generously given to me. COVID hit in the last few months of my project, but having already spent a few months with them, I managed to collect some recipes the week before everything shut down. I loved talking to the women in the group and asking them for recipes. And what really stood out for me was when they couldn't find the words, they took a pen and drew pictures, which was a reminder that art is a universal language. So in the slide before, you can see the picture on the right. That's just whenever she didn't know how to explain a pan or how to cut a potato, she drew these really amazing diagrams. COVID struck in the final year of my undergrad, so I did lose a couple of months of contact time with tutors and course mates, and at the time it felt like a huge loss. But in hindsight, I'm actually really glad that it only impacted my final year, as opposed to those in the year below me who probably graduated without going back into the studios. I was lucky because in the way I was working, I didn't require any specialist equipment, but it definitely affected a lot of art and design students who were relying on equipment provided by the university. I also had a few opportunities lined up after university. I had a big commission from the Whitworth Gallery in Manchester to create a recipe book for them and the museum affiliated with them, but all the galleries and museums closed, so the project fell through. Our degree show was cancelled, and also degree festival shows like New Blood, they were all cancelled, which was a shame because normally big companies would go and scout out new talent. So that was a bit of a loss. So the impact of the project did feel low. So I decided to enter a competition called the Nationwide Degree Show to make up for that. The winners got their work put on a billboard somewhere in the UK for 2 weeks, and my work was selected out thousands of entries, which was an amazing feeling. The image on the left is a mock-up from one of my final year projects, and it was just to demonstrate how the project could be developed. So it was surreal that 6 months later, my work was actually on a real billboard. I also entered the project into a competition called Creative Conscious, which I won a gold award for, so that was also very exciting. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, a big part of my creative growth has been through volunteering. So whilst I was still at uni, I worked closely with textiles professor Alice Kettle. We met after I volunteered to help run a series of workshops at the British Muslim Heritage Centre, and I found out that she supports and facilitates textiles workshops that aim to support and upskill refugee and asylum seeker communities. As well as supporting me through my final degree, Alice continued to support me after university by giving me my first paid commission. This booklet was fully illustrated with sewing tutorials that Alice had been running over Zoom with Refugee Action. Alice provided them with sewing machines, and over the space of a couple of months showed them how to make different things like bags, cushions, friendship bracelets, and applique. All of the participants were from different places, so it was really important that there was no text in the booklet. This project again really highlighted the importance of art as a universal language. I really enjoyed researching the textiles from different cultures to use in the booklet, and it reminded me of the collections of textiles that my mum brought back from South Africa. So I've been working part-time at Access Art as a visual arts content producer, and Access Art works in partnership with teachers, schools, artists, educators, and lots more in the UK and overseas. In my role, I work with artists and educators to create resources for open-ended creative learning in classrooms and workshops. I really love my job, and it has been great to work in a field that I'm so passionate about. And also working part-time gives me the freedom to freelance as well, so it's been perfect. So I've been commissioned as well on the side by Access Art to illustrate and animate a series called Pedagogy in 250 Words. As part of this brief, I break down 250-ish words, exploring a topic in pedagogy into images. So I've also included a couple of recent commissions just to show you what I've been doing recently. I feel like with illustration, because it's mainly briefs that I get given, so there's kind of less to talk about in more recent projects. But yeah, so this is an illustration that I did for some end pages to a coffee table book. And this is an illustration commissioned by Manchester Metropolitan University. I was asked to attend an event about branding and capture all the themes and topics spoken about on the day, and it was a lot of fun. So just to end and answer the question, what does art mean to me? Art is a language that opens up borders. It's accessible and gives people a platform to be authentic and shout about things that are important. Art can also empower people by providing safe communities. It's given me the platform to communicate about things I care about in a way that I feel is most authentically me. Unfortunately, the world feels like a very dark place at the moment, and it's easy to feel very helpless. But it's important that we keep on studying and making art, because in a society where there are so many problems to solve, we need creative thinkers. And that's it from me. So thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Toby. That was lovely. The story of your life in drawing is just incredible, but also just, I think the accessibility of communication through drawing when you don't have the words has just come across as a really powerful thread. I'm going to hand over to Mira now. Wow. Mira.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Toby. That was really incredible. work. And now we move on to the next speaker and welcome Azadeh Zagri. It's really great opportunity for InSEA also to collaborate with close by countries. As a person from and representing Finland, I've invited a colleague, a young artist from Sweden, to talk today along with Rasmus. So Azadeh is based in Gothenburg in Sweden, born in Tehran, Iran. She has been active in Sweden and in Swedish art scene since 2008. She holds an MFA in fine art from Valand University and a BFA from Tehran, from Azad University. And she's also the founder and the head of the East in West Fine Art Organization. I'd like to say a couple words about Azadeh's commitment to art making. So she her work is centered in issues of heritage, nationalist representation, democracy, accessibility, pedagogy, and institutional critique. Her expansive practice includes performance, video art, installations, documentary filmmaking, social practice, and most notably, participatory research-based pedagogical projects. Her expertise lies in her ability to create environments for open discussion and creative expression in her projects. And moving beyond the labels of artists or pedagogue, she mindfully designs environments for collective art making by carefully choosing the right topics, educational tools, and pedagogical forms, always with the deep understanding of the communities she works within. So welcome, Azadeh. It's very lovely to have you this morning with us, and the mic is yours.
Thank you. Actually, as you know, there's a kind of a miscommunication between me and our organization. So I couldn't prepare like a PowerPoint presentation, but I decided to go to my website and I choose the two projects that are focusing mostly on the topic of the educational institutional critique and artist and artwork. So I'm playing between the borders of, and I'm trying to blur the borders of between all those that I mentioned. So as I can say shortly, that my passion to work with like educational form started in Iran when I was art student in University of Tehran, and I had some just small classes in my studio for the woman who just wanted to work with art as a hobby. And then when I left Iran, I heard that many of those women, they have becoming the artists. They just continue to study as art, study as an artist in the art schools, or they have started with our small like platform. So there I found that there is a very like a gap between my artistic practice and artist and what I'm producing as art and showing in the white cube and this educational form that I have. But I always knew that there is something there that I have to discover. So after moving to Sweden in 2008 and going to some free courses to different universities, and since I started my master at Valand University in Gothenburg, I try to deepen myself on those two topics that I mentioned, that who is the artist and who is the art educator, or what's the differences between all those, or is it a system that you can, for example, call your artistic workshops or project as a participatory artistic practice, and what's the role of the artist and the institution in this case. So I can give you some example. I will share my screen with you, so I can explain about those two projects and you will understand more what I mean and what's my challenge right now. So how I can share my screen? Here. So a monument of the city to build is a project that has been existed on my board kind of for a while, and I tried to talk with another artist, Gothenburg artist, Iranian, about this idea, and I found that she has a kind of passion to the question of right to the city, and so we tried to make an application to receive the grant to be able to make a project about the right to the city in Iran. But when we wanted to submit the project, we found out that this project probably it could be like a kind of the problematic in Iran, and we are not ready to come to those kind of challenges. So it was kind of the like depressing for us to build such a application, and then at night we decide to not send it. So then we decided to run the project in Gothenburg in a platform that we kind of know it well. So we both collaborated together. So my colleague Rayhane worked mostly on the philosophical and theory part of the project, and I tried to develop this educational part of the project in a way. So we got a really good grant from Gothenburg City to run the project here. So we booked some I don't like it to call it like a workshop, but probably you need to use that word to clarify, for example, for the schools, what they want to do. So in different school classes in the different part of the city, we booked to a kind of self-organized white cubed galleries. We have been in different places in the Gothenburg city to be able to meet different kind of people. So we printed out some images of the city by from the Google Map, and but it was like a choice for us because we went to the city and take some photos, and then we decided to remove those photos because we didn't want to have our gaze as artists to the photos. We wanted to choose the photos which are mostly like accessible and natural to everybody. We didn't want to force the children and adults to work with our vision, kind of. So we brought those images to the classes and asked children at the first I had 5 questions to the children that I want you to, after just making like a trust relationship with them, to explain about my neighborhood and which kind of things that I am thinking are functioning well or not in my neighborhood, what I want to change and what I don't want to change. Is there anything which is bothering me? So I brought the questions in the table that what bothers you or not, what do you like or not at home, at the school, at your neighbor, and in your city, and probably you can talk about the world. So it was so interesting that I can say that 100% of the participants made mostly 3 to 5 images, and they wanted to share them with us, their ideas. And the project developed by the participants of the project. I mean, me as an artist went to the room with okay, the concept is the right to the city, and the way that we are working are like those pens and those images. But there were the participants who had the control on the projects in a way that they want, in a way of that they made those images. So that was really interesting and sometimes hard to hear about the comments that the kids have about, especially the suburbs of the Gothenburg, because I don't know if you have heard or not, Gothenburg is one of the most segregated city in whole Europe, and segregation is one of the most problems that Gothenburg have. And so unfortunately, in my website, I don't have more like images that say exactly what the kids have been talking about. But for example, one kid talked about the violence and her fear of the violence when, especially, she's waiting for the school bus and she's waiting for like a hero to come and help her in the morning when she's waiting there. Some kids talked about that they have a desire to have more color in their neighborhood. Some kids had really like engineers that you can use those images as a models in the future for those kids, that they have designed a kind of the circus, and then some places that they can have candies, and they can go to the circus, buy, receive those candies, and then take a brush and took a toothbrush and then just brush the teeth. And I mean, they had all the plans in their head that where and how it will happen. And some of the images were really dark. For example, one girl painted 2 girls that are flying to the sky, and I said, who are they, what they're doing? She said that we want to move to and fly to Sweden. Sweden is safe, we want to live there. And I said, but you're living in Sweden, you are living in Gothenburg. And she said, no, here is not Sweden, here is Hammarkullen. And these are like a really, really tough words to hear from the kids that are living in the neighborhoods, and they are not still they are not still feel that this neighborhood is my home and this city is my home. So we had actually, I don't have like a clear numbers in my head that how many images at the end it's become, but it was about 2070, I believe. So we printed out all those images on a transparent papers and put them together, that even the installation itself became like when you moved in the room, the installation moved with your body too. And this movement for us was like a symbolic action against this segregation and borders and boundaries which are existing between those neighborhoods. And we didn't choose the images like this is this neighborhood and this is this neighborhood. We tried to combine them, and we tried to let the areas to come blurring into each other's and stories. So we have a small booklet in Swedish that explain kind of well about some detailed images, and in each exhibition space or platform that we have still difficulties to call it like exhibition too, because that's like a really like a research process for us, and even that exhibition and everything is still in the process of making. So we had those images and we had the material so people could come and create their work and talk about their desire about the city, what they want to change, what they want to move, what they want to do with their own city. And I believe that at least like even symbolically, if you have the opportunity to paint your desires, your comments freely, like sketches on the paper, so that will make kind of the feeling of ownership, that this city and this country is mine, and I have a like responsibility for it, and I have, when I make this responsibility desire in myself, so then probably I will try to change it. And this is one of the problems that probably most of the countries who have the immigrants and or accept the immigrants have, that many of the immigrants, they don't feel the second country as their home. So as you see, probably we made the whole platform, but the participants who were the one who made the projects, and they are the artists who with the generosity shared their idea with us about the city that they are living in. So I have a question. Do I have to share another project or not?
Actually, Azadeh, thank you so much. The time is up now, and we are moving to the next speaker. Thank you so much for sharing this so powerful work. I don't know if the workshop and exhibition are right or wrong words to express this work, but it's definitely moving, and thank you so much for sharing it this morning.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Azadeh. Could you unshare your screen for us as well, please?
Yes, I'm trying.
So that was lovely. It's so important, isn't it, the place that you live in and your connections to it, whether you're born in a place or whether you just end up there. That was really fascinating. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce the next speaker, who I kind of heard of through a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who's a fellow art educator. So I'm going to introduce to you in a minute Jamie Lawson-Evans. He is a 29-year-old contemporary British artist, primarily a painter. Born in Northumberland, which is the most beautiful part of northeast England, which also has a history of problems and poverty through the coal mining industry, etc. Jamie has exhibited and sold his artwork nationally and internationally in both solo exhibitions and group exhibitions, and he is in the process of founding his own school of art, which will be called the Northumberland School, and he has curated exhibitions for his own students. His own work sits in private collections alongside names such as Picasso, Basquiat, and Warhol. And through his art practice, Jamie seeks to encourage people to be participants in shaping the world that we're in, rather than stand idly on the sidelines as mere spectators. He wants us to challenge ancient structures and concepts that we are born into through asymmetric means. So over to you, Jamie, and just unmute your mic and go for it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak to you. I haven't prepared anything because this is my first Zoom call, like proper Zoom call. So I haven't got a presentation to share with everyone, but I can share some brief images just to let everyone know what I do.
It's a green button at the, but you've got it, Jamie. You've got it. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone can see my screen right now.
Yes.
Okay. And so the work I do, like first I'll talk about where I'm from. I'm from a background, I didn't actually realize that until I went to university, that I'm from a very much a working class background. And the background I'm from, it's somewhere where you're not necessarily encouraged to step out of the traditional role that your parents and the people around you do. And by going to university, I graduated Newcastle University in 2015, a BA in Fine Art. And since then, I've been a practicing artist. And through my art practice, I use my art practice as a way to like document my own existence. I'm not trying to, I don't wish to, but I never intended to become rich or famous through what I do. I just wanted to try and make a positive change in things that I see that are wrong in the world. And this painting here is quite typical of what I was doing. This is from 2016, I think. This painting was bought by a woman called Emily Sandé, who's a famous singer from the UK. And I had to go off the beaten like the traditional path, like in my own independent solo shows. So I had the idea of doing it myself because I found you're not really generally, unless you know someone, you're not invited to have solo shows and exhibitions and take part in group shows unless you know the right people. And so I just took it upon myself to put on my own shows. And the kind of work that I used to do when I come from, like where I'm from, we don't have galleries, and my parents would never take me to a gallery. They never understood what fine art was. Even when I was doing my own work, they told me they didn't understand it, but it looked good. So this is the kind of work I do. This was illegal graffiti on a train line like in my hometown. And when I was actually painting that one there, I painted it for my mum. It says, "To Isabel, love you, mum." So it's just like a monument to my own mum. The police actually pulled up when I was painting that one, and they watched me do it, like pulled in a big riot van. But I had ladders. Like someone that lives opposite came out and gave me ladders, to support what I was doing, because the wall before I did that was just typical like scroll graffiti tags. And so I took upon myself to use my own paint, my own time, to kind of put art in public. And the police have actually kind of accepted what I'm doing. And they took after the week after I did that, they see my mum. They're like, "Oh, we're seeing Jamie's art. Looks mint." And so I thought that was interesting. The fact that what I do is it's an illegal grey area. You're not necessarily encouraged to break the law, and I don't encourage anyone to break the law. But if I asked permission to do something like that, I would never get given it. And the wall, like all my life, it was just covered in like mold and graffiti, typical graffiti. So I took it upon myself to just, rather than like spectate, actually participate and just do it without asking permission. And it led me to further along the line when I was exhibiting and getting invited to other shows. It's another one I did. It led me to the idea of passing that idea on to kids. And like I got invited to teach in a secure children's unit, which is basically a prison for kids. It's semantics. And the kids there are sort of aged 11 to 14, 15, usually And they made me realize that my upbringing, I'd had a good upbringing compared to what they had. And I was doing a project with them called Happy Times Mad World. And then the pandemic hit. And I had to leave because of it. And so I never got to finish the project with them. And so I created a documentary with a local videographer from my hometown. It's called Happy Times Mad World. It's on YouTube, which explains a lot more about what I'm doing. But I realized through teaching children, when I work with kids and show them what I do, the response I would get is art makes them feel better and it takes their mind off of bad things. And I realized that that's kind of what I did when I was young. I would sit in my kitchen. Like my upbringing was quite I was raised in a house where there was a lot of alcohol use. I would stay up on school nights just drawing graffiti. And so I've realized that art can be something that can transform who you are and make you actually see yourself in a different regard. And so art to me, it's been integral. It's my whole identity now. It's who I am and what I do as an art, as a human being. And the importance of studying art, and to me, it's been evident. It's changed my entire life. I managed to pay off my mum's bills when I sold some paintings, and to me that was immense success because I never thought I would be able to do something like that. But I was quite disillusioned to the fine art world, or the art world, whatever you want to call it. It's amazing to be selling paintings for good prices, of course, but the people I was surrounded by and the world that I was in, I found it to be very disconnected from my reality and from my own hometown. For example, I was in Berlin at a group show, and people were buying bottles of Dom Perignon champagne for 750 euros per bottle. And that's like, where I'm from, it's like a week's wage, someone's monthly wage even. And so I realized that this is not really, I didn't expect this to be what I'd be doing. And so the idea came to me a while ago, as I was alongside teaching the kids and stuff. This was a sculpture by Certainly Gormley, which was put on Newcastle University campus, which was the campus I'm an alumni of. Looked like this, and the students were petitioning to get rid of it. They were complaining that it was put in the middle of the walkway and it ruined the aesthetic of the campus. I didn't necessarily agree. I actually liked the sculpture and I appreciated it. And I had the idea of doing an asymmetric collaboration, and this idea of asymmetric methods of interacting with society. I painted it. This is a funny photo that I got sent. This is actually Sir Gormley looking at the work I did. And you can see me doing this on my documentary. It was like, I did it in the middle of the day, broad daylight, as an artistic act of collaboration, not to deface or vandalize it, not as a bad act. And I thought, very naively now looking back, that he would be very supportive of what I was doing, because his own art practice talks about nature, and he putting artwork in public and how nature reacts with it. And it was meant to be a temporary intervention, because the paint would have washed off eventually because it's a rusty surface. And he actually took me to Crown Court, and so for for 3 years I was on bail. As I was teaching children in a secure unit, I was on bail for art. And the only family I've got in my life is my mom. I care for my mom now. She has early stages of dementia now. They were threatening to put me in jail for 9 to 12 months for this. And I thought the university and the artist himself would be willing to sort of listen to what I'm saying and give me the time of day. And I was very naive in that, but I actually won the case. I was found not guilty on all charges. Thank you. And my barrister, even my own barrister, was telling me that I was going to jail. I can't use the language that he was using right now because it's inappropriate. But he said, "You're doomed. You're going to jail." And I was like, "No, look at this." And I had to explain. I had to win over my own barrister. But I actually won the case, and that caused them to pay all the court costs and stuff. And in the process, like after I'd done that, I carried on continuing teaching the kids that I work with. And so this is a poster that I made, like, because I do everything myself, the PR, the mailing lists, everything. Like I put on the whole shows myself. So I've got a formula of how to put on exhibitions. And so this is like an example of what I was like. All them, the artists there, they're all young kids, about age 10 to 13, 14. And that is the actual train lines where I was painting when I was a kid. This is like our gallery in Ashington. And so I was kind of like, you can go on YouTube. I would rather just talk to you than show you things. If you go on YouTube, type in the Into the Future Art Endgame, title of the exhibition. There's videos which document the process that they went through. And so I showed the children the whole A to Z process of what an exhibition is, how you do it. And many of their own parents didn't even know what an exhibition was. They thought it was something to do with the circus. When I was talking about putting on like an exhibition. And so I realized through that, and actually a lot of the kids end up selling their work. They end up selling their work for like a couple £100. And I seen it change in them. They started believing in themselves. And a lot of the children from my area, the kind of kids that I'm relating to are kids who you wouldn't necessarily get in a fine art gallery. Chavs, often people would call them. And they've actually been told like, oh, I want to be like you, Jamie. I want to do art. I'm actually quite proud of being from Ashington now, from my area. And so that to me was, it gave me a purpose in my art. Like rather than just try and make money and live in this world that we're in, it made me realize that we can actually change structures that we're born into, because I'm not meant to be like the position I'm in unless I forced the doors open myself and took my own initiative and did it myself. I wouldn't be where I am today. And so art's shown me kind of behind the curtain. Like when I was in Crown Court, all the workers, they were all very like people like me from a working class background, and the barristers and the judges, they all sound different, look different. And I thought that was very interesting because I don't know any judges, and I'm friends with my barrister now. I'm friends with him now. We became friends, and he actually thanked me for the guidance in the case. And so I kind of, to me, art is my life. And through that you can, I don't think artists should be complaining about the world not giving them. There's something we should be giving the world. I see artists as people who can provide faith and direction and hope to the world. And I think right now, with people were mentioning earlier on, the world's looking very grey and dark, and it is. Like there's no mistake about it. But we as artists, we're in a very privileged position where people can listen to us, and they give us respect and time that most people wouldn't get. Like if I was a plumber or I was a ASDA worker or a shelf stacker, people kind of take them for granted. But being an artist, it allows you to comment and people actually take notice. Like right now, I'm speaking to a global audience. And so to me, like art it's a way to change the world positively and give the world hope. And the founding of my school, the Northumberland School, it's something that I'm in the early stages of, and it's a big deal. It's a big process. Like the area is very poor. There's not much funding in the area, and so I'm using my own money in a big way to put on like what I'm doing. And the exhibition was funded by a local youth. I want to say the Future Art Endgame, that was funded by a local youth group. But a lot of the other work, I'm spending my own money. Some of the materials I'm using, the spray paint, I'm showing them. And the actual train lines, that's kind of my outdoor studio now. I take the kids down there as an extension of like an asymmetric art campus. And that's another continuation of asymmetry. At the minute, I haven't got the money to buy a building. So it's not like a static campus. And so I'm just using Northumberland as my art campus. And that's something that I'm very interested in. And it's an abstract way of thinking. I think because I'm an abstract painter, as artists, we see the world very differently to a lot of other people. And so I think we need to think outside the box and in new ways, and not to be disheartened by what's going on. It is very depressing, of course, when you say all the stuff going on in the world. But I truly believe that artists can change the world, only if we realize where we want to go. If you figure out where you want to go, then you realize how to get there.
Yes.
And through doing that, I've seen the kids around me change in a big way, and so that's given me purpose. Like, so to me, art, like, it's hope for the world, and it's allowed me to, like, I work with refugees. When I lived in Germany for a little bit when I graduated university. So I was in Germany at the peak of the refugee influx to Germany, and so I was putting on art workshops in refugee camps in Bremen, and I was seeing the work with them, and it was making them comforted, and it's a magic thing to me. My life is magic, and there's a lot of society which takes the magic out of life, and I think art is this is all off the top of my head, by the way. I've got no notes. This is all.
We've got 2 minutes left, Jamie. 2 minutes, okay.
Thank you. And so I think, how has COVID affected my practice? I was living homeless in my art studio during COVID because I already got my mom. I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, and so I ended up living homeless at the peak of lockdown. So I was living in the middle of Newcastle City Centre in my art studio, and there was no one around. I couldn't hear any, like, the clapping and stuff that was going on. That was that's how deep I am into my art. Like, I've given my whole life to my art. I wasn't homeless out of not having any money. I just couldn't get an estate agent because everything shut down. And so I was always scared to go home to my mom because I didn't want to risk her getting ill. So just that last question, how has COVID affected my practice? Affected it in a big way, but it also made us realize that there's more important things than trying to have your own success. Because I was kind of in the mindset where I was trying to get more exhibitions, like build my own profile up. But the COVID has kind of made us realize that there's more important things than money in life. And I think it made everyone realize that.
Jamie, I've been quite moved by your presentation. I have to be really honest. Your honesty is incredible and inspiring. And you've said something just now, which is a catchphrase of mine, that art is actually magic. It really is. That was absolutely fantastic. I have to hand over straight away to Gabriella, who's going to introduce our last two speakers. And I just encourage people here today to put any questions up in the chat, and we will try and direct those later. Speakers, you might want to look through the chat and identify any questions as well. So thank you, Jamie. Gabriella, over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. Can you please share your screen?
How do I? I'm sorry. I'm very sorry about this. How do I do that?
The same way you did it with sharing. The same. Down, green button, share screen. It was incredibly refreshing anyway, Jamie. Thank you very much for your words.
I'm sorry, I'm very sorry about this. Can you guys see my screen right now? Can you please tell me how to get off this?
Just trying to work it out.
Oh, stop share. There we go.
Yes,
yeah.
It was the button down. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Jamie, again. And now we move on to the next speaker. Esther Tóth was born in Hungary, where she studied art history and education, and she is a co-founder of Kulturaktív, an association and innovation lab for built environment education. She lives currently in Darmstadt, Germany. Esther is working at the crossroads of education and urbanism, driven by her passion for developing methods, tools, and approaches that support young people to understand and co-create their urban environment. Anyway, she has a strong connection to InSEA as well. This book is an InSEA, can you see it? An InSEA endorsed book published by Esther, Anna Guba, Viola Rekvényi, and myself about built environment education in kindergarten. And this is the opportunity to ask Glen to speak after all presentations about the possibilities how InSEA members can publish with us. Esther, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriella, for the introduction, and I will share my screen here. Okay. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present my work and also the ideas and motivation that which are behind my work and which are very much very strongly connected to many of the previous presentations. And also thank you for myself for the inspiring presentations I heard so far. And I start my presentation with my background. The first question of Susan for us was, what does art mean to you? And for me, art is an expression of the exceptional human nature. It is the expression of humanity itself. I was 14 years old when I first saw Gothic manual line buildings in Portugal on a family holiday, and I was struck by the sight of the monastery in Batalha that you can see in a picture. And I felt it was a celebration of human skills, abilities, power, and creativity. And not only it is a stunning feat of engineering and artistry, but its ornamentation with its maritime and nautical motifs is imbued with pride and admiration for the Portuguese explorers and discoveries at that time. So I was fascinated by this kind of visual and spatial manifestation of the depths of the human soul and intelligence. And I decided to study art history. And so I did. I studied art history and worked as a museum educator at the Museum of Fine Arts in Budapest. And then with a scholarship from the Robert Bosch Foundation, I went to Germany to work as a curator at the Kunstverein Düsseldorf. And this was another very important experience that shaped my approach to art and my mission and commitment. Then the exhibition space and the concept of the white cube at the Kunstverein made me realize what I later recognized in the words of Brian O'Doherty, who pointed out that every object became almost sacred inside of this modernist white cube, or any modernist white cube, making the reading of art problematic. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt that art was disconnected. There was no connection between art and the everyday world. And as a humanist, I felt that the power, the skills, and the creativity that are manifested in art should not be isolated from everyday life, but used to make a positive difference in people's everyday life and environment. And what I felt was particularly true for the pedagogical context. And then I also come to the second question of Susan: why is it important to study art? I believe that art is an opportunity for everyone to make the world, or their world, a better place, by giving us faith in human ability and creativity to create wonderful things, and by showing us the ways, the tools, the techniques, and different perspectives. And my attention therefore increasingly turned to the ordinary spaces, everyday spaces of our lives. I stepped out of the white cube and wanted to bring the practice of art education into everyday spaces. And this is when I was introduced to built environment education, which aims at reflecting and improving the relationship between humans and their living environment by fostering the understanding and the conscious and active co-creation of space. So in 2011, with some enthusiastic colleagues, I co-founded the association Kulturaktiv. As Gabriella already told, we conceive it as an innovative lab where we develop methods to help children and young people to learn about, interpret, analyze, and positively shape their environments. Our pedagogical work is based on exploration. So this is the more basic level. We create opportunities for children to learn about their everyday environment from different perspectives and points of view. And we have a lot of workshops and formats for this. And in addition to in-situ workshops and walks, we also publish a series of children's books in which we present different towns and cities for children in an interactive way, encouraging them to explore and think for themselves. So far, 12 towns, municipalities are involved in this project. And the next level is experimentation, which involves experimenting with ideas and techniques and materials. So we do a lot of creative workshops, and we also develop games to help to develop ideas for urban spaces. Here you can see one of our games called Urbanity, which is a dialogue-based game where players form and exchange opinions about everyday urban culture, spatial situations, or places they know. Do you think, or would you take a bath in a city, in an urban fountain, for example? Or do you think it's good to make a fence around playgrounds? And then we involve people to discuss these topics, to make them aware of their environment, which affects them and their everyday lives, and just like make them aware of these phenomena, urban phenomena, and also motivate them to make opinions and exchange opinions and collect arguments pro and contra. And this is Urbanity about. And the climate of our work is the creation of space, where young people can experience that they also can shape the environment, make positive changes, improve the places they use in their everyday life. These actions can be from small-scale interventions to formal participatory processes. So we have a wide range of actions and dimensions. Here you can see an example where we work with kids on schoolyard reconstruction. And in addition to our pedagogical work, we think it's important to share our approach and methods of built environment education. So we regularly organize training courses for teachers and architects and professional conferences. And we have also a series of professional books. And I also brought the picture of the one which is connected to InSEA, the built environment education in the kindergarten. To promote, to spread the word about the importance of dealing with our everyday spaces, also for educators, pedagogues, but also for planners and architects. So this is our work, and a brief overview of what we do at Kulturactive and what I am doing in my practice, but it's not only my practice, but also my research interest with environment education. As a practitioner at this emergent and interdisciplinary field, I realized the growing demand for specific domain-specific methods and tools and theories that support this kind of place-based learning. So thus, I developed a research interest to improve these fields by developing tools and theories and doing empirical research. And the main focus of my research now is directed to the transformative potential of games Games are increasingly used as easy to understand instruments in the interface of urbanism, planning, and education, both for learning and explaining spatial issues and for transforming virtual or real spaces. And the transformative capacity of games has a promising potential for the practice of built environment education and for placemaking, but it still lacks some knowledge how we can do it in a way that it is effective and that we can reach our goals. And that's the focus of my dissertation project, where I conducted an educational design research and developed the game Participation. I would like to show you this project as an example of my work. So the core of the research has been the design and evaluation of the game Participation. The question is why is it so important and why I started to work with games. I often work together with architects and also in participatory processes, and I realized that it is very hard to get meaningful participation or to get to meaningful participation with the traditional participatory methods. When we ask children, okay, so here is a park, this was a very concrete example. Some years ago, there was a desolated park in the city where I come from in Hungary, and some civic organizations started to reconstruct it, or at least developing ideas for the park, how we could reuse this and open it up again for the public. And then we had a workshop with young people and asked them what they would change in the park or how they would like to use it. And then they were completely stunned, in panic, and said that they have not the competence to make an opinion because they are not architects and not planners. So we should invite architects and then they will tell us what to do, but they cannot. And then I just spontaneously prototyped the game so that they had a set of rules, and this magical space of the games appeared, and then all the hierarchies and fears disappeared, and then they started to slowly, step by step, to develop ideas. And that was also a moment for me when I really realized this potential of this magic circle of games. And then in this project, we developed a game together with in a collaborative design process together with young people from 12 to 16 and architects and planners and youth workers. And the whole process took a year and a half. We had several workshops where we introduced very different design techniques to be able to develop a game that is fun and helps young people to develop ideas for their living environment. And the final game itself illustrates one day in the Hungarian town of Pécs. It consists of 12 rounds or 12 hours. They have 12 hours. And it tells the story of an extraordinary Saturday where these young people can gather to make their city more attractive by means of small-scale interventions. So players are in constant flow of communication. They form temporary groups, make appointments, and cooperate with each other in order to trigger imagined changes in the urban space. They work around the town, experience and initiate interventions, have nice stories, and pass through familiar and unexpected events of everyday life. And they have the common goals. It's a cooperative game. They have to make as many positive changes, interventions as possible.
Just a couple of minutes left, Esther, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So actually this game presents patterns of actions that young people can apply in real life and bring about positive change in their spatial environments, for example, painting benches or putting poems on bus stops, or making skate championship, organizing skater championships or whatever. So like small scale things that they are able to transfer to their real life process. We brought the game to several schools and played with hundreds of children and teenagers. You can see the table version, and we have a bigger like live version. And it is also second round, this game, where the players can develop an idea for change themselves. So they have to choose a place they use and find problematic and define the problem of this side, define a goal and strategy for improvement and the kind of action they want to take, and then develop a short plan for it. And for each step, they receive a deck of cards with different aspects for support, to support their planning process. And it takes like 15 minutes, around 15 minutes. And this is where magic happens, because we received a lot of really great ideas spread all around this city of Page. And here you can see, for example, like making swings in the park, or putting a bench on the top of the tunnel to where we have the best view of the sunset, or making guerrilla bike lanes, or whatever. And we organized an exhibition and invited the chief architect of the city and discussed the ideas with the experts of the town and the inhabitants. And then finally, we also supported the children to implement their ideas. There you can see, for example, this bench, the sunset view, a romantic bench for romantic meetings, or birds houses. But we had also worked with Roma children who just really needed to have a safe space for playing. This is the left picture on the bottom. It was also very touching because they invited their whole families, and we had 60 people who were working one day long to clean up green space in the suburb part of Page, which is called the Roma ghetto, and clean up from needles and whatever, to have a place where they can play football and just being safe. So this is what we achieved through this game, and this is actually not only the power of games but the power of art. And I also believe that art is important because it shows us that we have the potential to make positive change ourselves. And this is where art education should put the focus on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. It was really important to say with other words what already what we heard already about connection and responsibility. Participation is very, very important. And now we will move on and hear Zsuzsanna Sziráky, a textile artist and designer living and working in Budapest, Hungary, educated at the Molina University of Art and Design in Budapest. And this is the place where she currently is studying to be a visual art teacher. The word is yours.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. So, hi, I'm Zsuzsanna Sziráky. an artist and designer who mainly works with textiles and textile patterns. And color plays a very important role in my designs. Basically, I just like colors. And my more recent work, although I designed with physical materials in mind, has been more conceptual. I've been focusing more on concepts and how to convey them, rather than working with specific textile materials. And as Gabriella said, I mastered in textile art and design in 2020 at the Molina University of Art and Design, which is the largest design university in Budapest, the capital of Hungary. And I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in visual art education, which is a very thorough one-year degree program at this same university. And I really love it. And so what does art mean to me? Art for me always has some kind of an element of freedom in it. Looking at art that I like makes me feel free in some way. And looking at a piece of art for the first time brings a sort of a paradigm shift to what I thought of reality before that moment. It shows a piece of the world I've not seen before. Some forms of art, for example, textile art, and the process of weaving can be a meticulous and repetitive method, and it requires a lot of concentration. So this kind of art making textile art, gives you a freedom in a meditative sense. It can bring you to a state of flow when you're fully immersed in what you're doing. And the technique I use to make these baskets is a triaxial weaving technique. It uses 3 axes instead of 2 axes, which would be a traditional method of weaving. And making these does require a lot of concentration. It's almost like a mathematical problem. So it is really meditative. And the safety harnesses I use for the baskets are waste materials, actually, from a rope and harness factory in Hungary. And this next project of mine is called Everyday Bauhaus. It was made in 2019 for the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Bauhaus School. I designed a pattern collection and an installation piece using geometrically shaped everyday objects in primary colors. I wanted to examine the ideas of formal and informal and how they relate to the Bauhaus principle of everyday function and what that means today in everyday life. So this is another side of what art means to me. Art can express the same ideas and concepts that philosophy can, ideas that are freeing and that I feel expand my world. But art reveals these concepts and ideas to you in a different way than philosophy, with different methods of creating. And I guess you can reach the same conclusion. And art for me is also freeing in the sense that it can be like playing a game. It can be serious and play at the same time. An example of this in my work is my diploma project. I designed a pattern collection concept for the public transportation bouquets for the public bus and tram seats of Budapest, Hungary. Using basic forms like circles and squares and lines, I designed over 90 matching patterns that could be combined in any way. In each pattern, I hid a little icon, for example, a tram or a famous touristic site of Budapest. And these would be used on the public transportation vehicle seats of the city. Unfortunately, these didn't get manufactured because of the pandemic, but I'm planning on it.
Zsuzsa, sorry to interrupt you, but your image doesn't moving.
It's not moving?
No. We just see the first page of your presentation.
Really?
Yeah.
Then I'll just go back and start over. Sorry.
And I know how fantastic they are, so it would be
okay. No problem at all. I'll just start over if you don't mind. Can you see it now? Is it moving?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So basically,
you have 6 minutes to go.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So basically, this is me. This is my art, and I graduated from the Molina University. And my textile art is basically these baskets and weaving. But recently I've been more conceptual. And for example, this is like an example of something that's more philosophical and you know, experimenting with what Bauhaus is now and what was it before. And this is where I think I left off my diploma project for my textile diploma. And so basically I made these patterns, these 90 patterns for our bus seats in Budapest. And I hid in them icons of famous places in Budapest. And if you look at them for the first time, you might not see them, but if you're traveling a lot on the same tram, you might notice them after a while. And it's just like a little game, I think, for me. And for everybody who, I'd just like to show you a video about it, but I don't know if I can. Well, it's okay. So the basic aspect or the basic concept of this was to, just to hide little icons in it. And it would be a little playful message to the travelers of Budapest to see the little things in life. And Hungarian poet János Pilinszky describes another aspect of freedom. And he said, art is actually none other than breaking through facts and reaching what is real. I think this means facts sometimes can't convey reality or truth in a way that art can. Art has the ability to say the truth. Art gives you a way of freedom to express truth. And I saw this graffiti sign on the right on a building wall across from the school I teach in now. And it means if you educate by restricting, you're teaching how to lie. And this brings me to why I think studying art is important. I would like to talk about a specific aspect of why I think studying art is important. It's important because it can show students a way to be free. It can help you recognize restriction and untruth if you encounter it. I started teaching last semester as part of my teacher training. And the philosophy and method of nonviolent communication is important to me, important in the way I teach art. I'm writing my thesis paper on nonviolent communication in the art classroom. And the main principle of nonviolent communication, and I think of life, and the main principle of art too, is that it's don't do anything that isn't play. Meaning don't do anything just because you feel like you have to, or out of fear of punishment or shame. If you do it because of fear of punishment or the consequences, or out of shame, in the long run, everybody suffers from that. Do it because you would like to do it out of play. Unfortunately, shame culture and the culture of violence can creep into all aspects of life. It can creep into schools too. If you have a method to recognize mechanisms of shame culture for what it is and to call it out, it liberates you. Art can be a method for this. Practicing art or learning about art, knowing art, makes you more immune to oppression. I was born in the United States and my family moved a lot when I was a child, like Toby. And from Hungary to America and back again more than once. And there was a lot of change in my life, but whatever school I went to, the art room always felt the same for me. It felt like an endless opportunity to create, and I felt at peace. My art teacher showed me a freer way to be through art. They made me feel safe and free at the same time. So this is what I would like to give back. Making art and learning about art made me so happy in school and helped me to be a freer person. So teaching is a way of giving back what I got from studying art. So I want to share this with others. I always wanted to teach. Teaching for me feels like play. And teaching others, creating with my students is important and fun at the same time. So this is what art means to me and why studying art is important. It has led me to a special kind of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zsuzsa. What a wonderful last words. Non-violence communication leads to freedom, and freedom is peace. This is what we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was great. Lovely end. There's so many threads between the speakers today that were unintentional. Mothers in particular, right? Mums, environments, places, taking risks, finding spaces for art. I think it's been absolutely fantastic. I've only got a couple of questions. I'm not sure if Mira and Gabriella have any that they would like to put, but these are from the chat. And one of those questions to you, Jamie, is how on earth can you get funding to carry on with your Northumberland school? You need to just unmute your mic there for a minute. How are we going to get funding?
That's a good question. I think the question of funding is there are many people who would give me money, but I think because of the area that I operate in, it's somewhat of a grey area. The traditional channels might be a bit harder to get to. So I've got ideas of local funding, like grassroots, very much grassroots thing. But it's something that I would like to know as well.
Well, there's crowdsourcing as well, where you can just put an online platform that asks for money.
I've had the idea of trying to tap into people, like regular people's lives, and like, because they'll go out and spend on a night out £100 or something, and if I could get £10 of that towards the school, that would be a good way of doing it. So like my art practice, I want to involve the general public, the people who aren't necessarily associated with art, and the Arts Council would be a good at, like, I'll be willing to get funding from anywhere. I'm not biased in where I get funding from, but I don't want any restrictions on what I do. I don't want to have funding and have to toe a certain line or jump through a certain hoop. So that the more open source funding I could get is something that's something I'm trying to delve into.
Well, good luck with that. You won't be asking Anthony Gormley to make a donation, will you?
Even though he's a millionaire.
I've got a question for Toby, and it's actually from Sanjana, who's on this call. Sanjana, do you want to ask your question to Toby about how she feels about art being marked in schools?
Yeah, I mean,
over to you.
Thanks, Susan. You know, it is I'm also actually teaching art in a school in Dubai, and I have been teaching for over 20 years, in fact. And yeah, it's always you know, I'm very concerned about how art is actually marked, you know, associated or leveled against traditional subjects, and how did they feel about it? How did, let's say, Toby, or even now we had the last presentation, how did they feel about marking a subject like art? Teaching is a different thing, but then when it gets marked and placed at different levels of saying that.
Okay, yeah. You've got a lot of background noise, so we'll kind of mute you for a minute if you don't mind. And the question really, Toby and other speakers, is does art change because we're having to assess it and mark it within the school system? Toby, I don't know if you want to chip in there.
Yeah, no, I think that the thing is with art, it's different to all the other subjects, so it should be treated very differently. And I think the problem and the worry with grading is that the schools are so worried about how they're going to come across. So they're not grading the students because the students don't care if you take a photo of them doing something so that it's proved to, you know, Ofsted or the board that, you know, assesses the school. So the problem is that assessment, in a way, it needs to be taken back to the student, and it needs to be about making sure that children have opportunities to all the materials, to ideas, and, you know, they should be given the freedom to then make choices about, you know, what they want to do based on what they've learned, because the opportunities are there. And that's the problem, I think, is that schools aren't providing those opportunities, and they're marking based on, no one knows what they're marking about, because no one understands it because it is difficult to understand. So yeah, those are my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, anybody else? Are we happy? Gabriella, Mira, have you spotted any other questions for your speakers?
I just probably would like to say that, as you said, Susan, there's so many threads that are combining so many of the speakers today, and I think just one thing that points out my attention is that how perhaps the pandemic, I'm not sure, but seems like there was a kind of a frozen moment when it was a little bit difficult to think that how to practice art in the changing world, and these examples today. I'm particularly maybe thinking Rasmus's in the beginning and Jamie's and all of the all like more kind of pedagogical projects also show the way that how possible it is to break these institutional frames that we have in our societies, and how art has been kind of framed in a particular way, and it is possible to see it differently and to work around differently. And I think the idea of going to, for example, taking this abundant power transfer tower and having people to move around with their flashlights and explore totally like somebody said on the chat also, like how artists embodied and always engaging in different ways. I think it was really kind of a moving moment for me, and I think all of these presentations today have been really, really touching and moving. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gabriella.
I didn't see any questions, just nice words. They are just say the same important topics with other words. One interesting question arises here in connection with Jamie, how elitist art and the art world of art pedagogy can be connected. This is also a question of our session today.
I think it is accessible. It's just actually getting the door open. That's the problem. And everyone, they talk about inclusivity, but when you actually get there, it's rather a hard environment to exist in and to stay there. But I think just by showing people, because a lot of people who in the art world, they're born into it, in the sense that they're born into parents who take them to galleries, who educate them about what fine art is and prepare them for that kind of world. And I think a lot of people just don't realize how inaccessible it is. I think if we can link out and like do things like this and branch out and make connections globally and use our own connections to talk to people and show them things that they don't realize. Because I've realized that I've met people who are billionaires, and when I was talking to them, I've never spoken to a billionaire before, and I'm quite sure that they'd probably never spoken to me for any significant, someone like me for anything like length of time in the way that they were. And the fact that I was an artist, it made them actually stop and consider what I was doing. So I think there's also just a lack of connection and lack of awareness from people at the top. Likewise at the bottom, it's very similar. Like the two worlds of art, I've always had the idea of bringing the outside world of art that I'm part of, the graffiti world. I'm not anymore though, but it's where I come from. But it's very much like a working class world of art. I've always had the idea of trying to combine them two worlds. And then when I've tried to do it, you bring them together and they fight. And even though they're very similar, asymmetry, they're part of the same thing, but they say each other is so distinctly different from both ends. a lot of people from the lower end wouldn't want to be around people like, hello, yeah. If it's like when I went to university, I'd never heard anyone without a regional accent. And so I went to university. I went to Newcastle University. I had to change the way I speak. The way I'm speaking to you guys now, I'm aware that I've got to change. Like if I was talking to my friends where I'm from, it wouldn't be in the same manner. And so it's a big disconnection. I think just from lack of awareness and lack of interaction, because the society is very regimented, especially in Britain here. I think the problem here is class.
Yeah, well, it's the whole cultural capital philosophy and argument, isn't it? It really is. I've got to end the whole session now, which is a great shame, but I wanted to say on behalf of Gabriella and Mira and the whole of InSEA, big thank you to all of you, Erasmus, Toby, Esther, Azadeh, Jamie, Susanna. I'm just quite, as Mira said, I'm quite moved today, but also I feel strong because I feel the future is in these amazing hands. The only way that we can thank you is to continue to bring you together as a group, so that when I send the thank you email, you'll have each other's email addresses. Save the chat and you'll get all the links, and we will be giving you a year's free membership to InSEA as well, because we'd like to have you on board within our organisation. And a message from our president, Glen, who was here at the beginning, is again to say thank you to every single person who's presented, but to every single person that's joined us this morning, because it's been lovely. It's been lovely. And I'll just end by handing over for a minute to Mira and Gabriella to say goodbye as well.
Thank you for being with us. And stay with us, publish with us.
And thank you for all presenters, and thank you for everybody who were also joining this call this morning. Thank you. It's lovely to see you.
I'll just say what a pleasure it is to work with Gabriella and Mira. Okay, represent.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Speakers, go and pat yourselves on the back and put the kettle on, have a cup of tea.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mira. Thank you, everyone.